When life wants to teach balance, it doesn't whisper, it rearranges everything. The same stones they threw at you to make you stumble became the steps you climbed higher on. That's the law of cosmic balance. Every attempt to bury you becomes their own lesson in consequence. Those who plant thorns in your path always end up walking barefoot through the field they created. Critics love to watch you bleed, but the irony is your pain becomes the very fuel that lights your rise. The universe doesn't forget equations, it just waits for the right time to balance them. And now, that time has come. Those who wanted to see you fall are learning that you were never standing on their approval. You were rising from your purpose. You don't chase revenge, the energy of their envy does it for you. Every rumor, every scheme, every quiet attempt to dim your name only amplified your presence. That's the secret they'll never grasp. You can't curse someone who was built from chaos and came out shining. The power of being chosen isn't loud, it's haunting. It lingers in rooms you've left. It echoes in conversations they tried to control. You are their unfinished sentence, the one truth they can't rewrite. So to every chosen one watching this, stand taller. The balance is tipping in your favor. Your growth is the loudest form of justice there is. You're about to witness the shift they swore would never happen, the moment every lie they built around you starts cracking under its own weight. What you told that ex about the third party wasn't just words, it was a spark that set the whole illusion on fire. This message isn't for everyone. It's for the ones who felt that shift in their bones, who know deep down they were never the villain, they were the mirror. Before we go further, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop 999 in the comments to lock in your energy with this message. Stay with me till the end, because what's coming next will make everything they did to break you look like the setup for your greatest breakthrough yet. Number 1. Silence is their leash. Break it once, and you'll never be controlled again. They spent months memorizing the version of you they could control. Every pause, every glance, every word you didn't say, they catalogued it like a study. In their minds, you were predictable, safe, someone they could script and silence at will. But the day you opened your mouth and spoke that truth, the one about the third party they thought you'd never see, you rewrote the entire story. You didn't raise your voice or plan a dramatic reveal, you simply spoke. And that simplicity is what made it lethal. You didn't throw a punch, but reality did. The atmosphere shifted. It was like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion. And they knew, in that instant, the game was over. You didn't guess, you knew. That's what haunts them. Because what you said wasn't gossip, it was precision. You connected dots they thought were scattered too far apart for anyone to see. They had built this illusion carefully, brick by brick, convinced that your silence meant blindness. But silence is observation, and observation turns into insight when the time is right. The moment you spoke, you shattered years of performance. Their masks slipped, their confidence cracked, and suddenly the person they underestimated became the one they feared most. They can't stop replaying it. How did you know? Who told you? They search for leaks, spies, whispers, anything to explain your accuracy. But they'll never find an answer because the truth didn't come from outside sources. It came from your alignment. You saw patterns they couldn't hide because clarity has a way of cutting through noise. And once that clarity spoke, there was no going back. You didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves trying to hide what was always visible. What unsettles them most is that it looked effortless. You weren't angry. You weren't seeking revenge. You just spoke, calm, certain, unshakable, and that calmness felt like judgment to those who lived in deceit. They're not haunted by your words. They're haunted by what those words revealed about them. The moment you broke the silence, they realized you weren't someone they could manage. You were someone who had already outgrown their control. They'll call it coincidence, luck, manipulation, anything but what it really was, a moment of exposure. Because once you said what you said, their entire illusion began to unravel, thread by thread. The stories they rehearsed don't fit anymore. The characters they played don't make sense. You turned their script into a mirror and they can't stand what's staring back at them. And here's the twist they'll never admit. You didn't plan any of it. You were just being real. But reality, when spoken by someone who's been underestimated too long, hits like a thunderclap. It's the kind of truth that rearranges rooms, shifts loyalties, and forces people to face what they've been avoiding. You weren't predictable. You were inevitable. Number 2. If you don't rewrite your own story, someone else will script your downfall. They thought they could write your story for you, scene by scene, lie by lie, until you flipped the pen back in your own hand. That's the thing about the chosen ones. The moment you stop living by their script, the whole illusion they built starts to burn. They never expected you to wake up inside their story. They counted on your silence, your loyalty, your confusion. But the second you opened your eyes, you realized they'd been choreographing your every move, deciding who you trust, who you question, what you believe. See, manipulators don't just lie, they direct. They create settings, cast themselves as victims, and hand you lines to repeat without you even noticing. But when you spoke that truth to your ex about the third party, you didn't just expose deception, you exposed the director. You revealed the script behind the performance, and suddenly everyone forgot their lines. That's when panic starts. Because once you step out of the role they gave you, they lose the control that fed them. You stop being a character and become the narrator. Now they're stuck in the story they wrote, and it's collapsing fast. They can't undo your words because your truth has already rewritten the ending. They'll call you unpredictable, cold, ungrateful, anything to paint you back into the version that serves them. But it's too late. Once you reclaim your own story, you reclaim the power they borrowed. Let them talk. Let them scramble. You've already changed the plot. The lesson here is brutal but simple. If you don't take the pen, someone else will use it to erase you. But the moment you do, you turn their fiction into your redemption arc, and that's the nightmare they can't escape. Number 3. Let the truth explode. The shock it causes is just illusion dying loud. They thought they could contain it. They thought your words would fade like smoke. But truth, once released, doesn't dissolve. It detonates. You didn't drop a secret. You dropped a signal. The moment you spoke that one line, something in the atmosphere shifted. Their calm cracked. Their alliances started trembling. Messages were sent, calls were made, stories were rewritten, but it was already too late. You didn't just reveal a lie, you triggered a chain reaction no one could reverse. This is what happens when deception meets precision. Lies can stretch for months, even years, but they're fragile. They depend on silence to survive. The moment a chosen one speaks, the illusion panics. It scrambles, claws, tries to patch itself up. But every move it makes exposes another hole. That's why they're restless now. That's why their minds won't stop spinning. You spoke once, and now their own words are betraying them. Don't feel guilty for the chaos that followed. The explosion isn't destruction, it's cleansing. When truth hits, it doesn't need your permission to burn away what's false. It dismantles the fake peace they built, leaving only what's real standing. That's why it's so loud. The noise you're hearing isn't you ruining their world. It's their lies dying dramatically. Chosen ones don't create chaos, they reveal it. You simply spoke what everyone else was too afraid to say, and that act alone unmasked the entire performance. They thought they could outsmart truth, but truth doesn't play games, it ends them. So let it explode. Let every hidden scheme echo its own collapse, because the shock they're feeling right now, that's not karma punishing them, that's reality catching up. Number 4. Don't soften your accuracy. Truth that cuts deep is the only kind that heals. There's a reason your words shook them the way they did. You hit where pretending can't survive. They weren't ready for precision like that. People can dodge rumors, twist assumptions, and hide behind polite lies, but they can't outrun a truth that lands like a blade. You didn't shout, you didn't threaten, you just spoke clean and clear, and that clarity burned through every excuse they built. That's the kind of truth that doesn't just expose, it erases illusions. They thought you'd hesitate, that you'd sugarcoat to stay likable, but when you stopped cushioning the truth, the entire atmosphere shifted. Your tone didn't rise, but their defenses did. Because accuracy in the hands of a chosen one isn't cruelty, it's correction. You weren't trying to destroy anyone. You were cutting away what was rotting the connection, and deep down, they felt it. That sting wasn't from your words. It was from finally being seen without disguise. Understand this, soft truth comforts the ego, but sharp truth frees the soul. And freedom doesn't come wrapped in comfort, it comes through confrontation. You didn't go too far, you simply stopped playing small. The reason it haunts them now is because your precision showed them what they truly are, stripped of performance. Every syllable you spoke was a mirror reflecting their own denial back at them. So never apologize for being exact. Your clarity is your power. The ones who flinch at it are the same ones who built their safety on lies. Let them call it harsh. That's what healing sounds like when it hits a wound that's been festering too long. Truth doesn't bruise, it disinfects. And you were the disinfectant they never saw coming. Number 5. Expose the cycle before it buries you. Clarity is confrontation dressed as compassion. They'll call you heartless when you finally stop pretending not to see. That's how cycles survive, through silence disguised as peace. But you, chosen one, weren't built to carry poison disguised as loyalty. The same pattern that kept repeating was never meant to be endured. It was meant to be ended. You saw it, the loop of manipulation, guilt, and emotional blackmail, and your spirit refused to play along anymore. That's what scares them. You didn't explode, you exposed. You didn't lash out. You looked straight at the truth without blinking. And that kind of calm honesty burns deeper than any rage ever could. They don't understand that breaking a cycle isn't cruelty, it's mercy. Because when deception becomes routine, clarity feels like violence. The ones who depended on your confusion will always call your boundaries cold. But that's because they only thrived when you doubted yourself. The moment you named the pattern out loud, the illusion began to crumble. What once looked like keeping the peace was really keeping you trapped. Understand this. Clarity doesn't come to destroy, it comes to disinfect. It pulls the infection out into the light so real healing can start. And yes, that hurts. Yes, they'll call you ruthless. But what they really mean is that they can no longer manipulate you. The game ends the second you recognize it for what it is. You weren't meant to save everyone in the cycle. You were meant to stop it from continuing through you. So when your truth feels like confrontation, remember, compassion isn't always soft. Sometimes it's sharp, direct, and unbothered. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do is refuse to play along with the lie one more time. Number 6. Rip the spell apart. Their manipulation only lives as long as your confusion does. They never used chains, they used confusion. That's how the spell worked. Not the kind you see in movies, the kind woven through half-truths, fake apologies, and carefully timed affection. It was psychological fog, a slow hypnosis built from repetition. Twist the facts, rewrite the story, make you question your own clarity. They called it love, they called it care. But really it was control dressed as concern. Chosen one, the moment you stopped replaying their words and started trusting your own memory, the fog cracked. You didn't have to fight them, you just had to see. Manipulation can't survive visibility. It's allergic to awareness. Once you name what's happening, the entire system collapses. Their charm stops landing. Their guilt trips lose direction. The energy they once pulled from your doubt suddenly cuts off like a power outage. Now they're scrambling. They can't understand why the same tactics no longer work, why you don't flinch, don't chase, don't explain. You've broken the circuit. You're no longer reacting to their illusions, you're observing them, and that shift terrifies them more than confrontation ever could. Because now they realize their hold on you was never strength. It was access. Access to your belief, your focus, your empathy. Once that access closed, their spell shattered. Rip the spell apart, chosen one. Remember, confusion is their only weapon, and clarity is your liberation. When you think for yourself, they lose their script. When you trust what you feel, they lose their disguise. What once kept you under now bows before your awareness. You're not cursed, you were conditioned. And now the conditioning is done. You've outgrown their illusion, and that's why they can't reach you anymore. Number 7. Trust the knowing that scares you. Divine insight doesn't ask for evidence. They're still trying to figure out how you knew, how one sentence from you shattered months of lies they swore were untraceable. But the truth is, you didn't need proof. You felt it, that quiet knowing that kept whispering when everything else looked perfect. That was your signal. Most people ignore that voice because it doesn't come with receipts, but chosen ones know. When intuition speaks, it's not imagination, it's direction. The knowing that scared you was the very compass that led you through the fog they built. They called you paranoid, dramatic, too sensitive. But what they really meant was, you're getting too close. You weren't following rumors, you were reading energy. And energy never lies. You sensed the shift before it showed. You saw the shadow before it moved. That's what rattles them. Because no matter how many lies they told, you could still feel the truth breathing underneath. You didn't need screenshots, confessions, or evidence. You had awareness. And awareness is their worst nightmare. People who live in deception depend on your self-doubt to survive. They pray you'll question your instincts so their illusions stay safe. But you broke that pattern. You trusted the unease, the sudden silence, the small signs that didn't make sense. And when you spoke, you proved that intuition hits harder than any investigation. That's why they're panicking now. You've shown that truth doesn't knock, it walks straight in. So never question that knowing again. The voice that unsettles you is the same one that exposes them. What they call crazy is really clarity, and when you trust it, every mask around you starts to fall. You're not guessing, you're remembering what they tried to make you forget. Chosen ones just know. Number 8. Unmask the puppeteer. The one who calls it love might just be pulling your strings. They always said it was love, the kind that only they could give you. The kind that came with rules disguised as care. But real love doesn't demand you shrink, doesn't make you second-guess your worth, and it sure doesn't drain the life out of you while pretending to protect you. What they called love was management, emotional surveillance dressed as affection. They played the role of savior while secretly holding the strings. And every time you questioned it, they'd pull a little tighter, smiling as if it was concern. But here's what they never saw coming. You learned to see the strings. One by one, you started tracing the movements, recognizing that every compliment came with a hidden command. Every apology was bait to reel you back in. They thought they could keep you docile under the illusion of connection, but you've outgrown the stage. The chosen ones don't beg for clarity, they become it. When you finally spoke that truth, the one about the third party, you didn't just expose their secret, you revealed their strategy. You showed everyone that what looked like care was control. That's why they panicked. Because the moment their performance lost its audience, the whole act collapsed. Now they're scrambling, trying to twist the narrative, to paint you as ungrateful or cruel, but everyone can see what's really happening. You cut the strings and now the puppeteer can't move. You were never meant to be their creation. You were meant to outgrow the hand that held you. The irony, in trying to control your freedom, they handed you proof of your power. And now every move they make only tightens the noose of their own exposure. That's the price of calling manipulation love. It always ends in self-destruction. Number 9. Pull your energy back. When you stop feeding lies, their empire starves. They thought your silence was surrender, but what you were really doing was starving the illusion. See, manipulators don't live on truth. They live on reaction. Every time you explained yourself, defended yourself, or tried to prove your worth, you were unknowingly feeding their control. That's how they kept the power, not because they were stronger, but because you kept giving them your focus. And focus is energy, it's fuel. Once you pulled that back, their empire began to crumble in real time. The moment you stopped explaining, stopped trying to be understood, they felt the shift. Suddenly, their favorite weapon, confusion, stopped working. The silence they once used to dominate you turned into the silence that haunted them. You didn't need revenge, you just needed distance, because distance cuts deeper than any argument. It's the kind of power move that makes them spiral, checking your page, replaying conversations, wondering when the control slipped away. You didn't walk away weak. You walked away charged. Every ounce of energy you used to spend fixing what they broke got rerouted into your growth. And that's what terrifies them. The fact that you no longer need their validation to feel powerful. The energy they stole has returned to its rightful owner, and now they're exposed for what they truly are, powerless without your attention. When you stop feeding lies, the truth doesn't even have to fight. It just watches the illusion starve itself. That's what it means to be chosen. Your peace is their punishment, and your silence is the loudest truth they'll ever hear. Number 10. Stop defending deception. You didn't betray them. You freed yourself from their cage. They'll tell the world you betrayed them, but that's just their panic talking. What really happened is simple. You stopped defending the lie that kept them safe. For too long, you carried the weight of their deception, pretending not to notice the cracks, biting your tongue while they rewrote the story. But the moment you chose honesty over comfort, they called it betrayal. That's the irony of truth. Those who live in falsehood mistake freedom for treason. They needed you quiet. Your silence kept their illusion alive, made them look righteous while you carried the burden of pretending. But you've grown beyond that. You didn't turn against them, you turned toward yourself. The moment you spoke, you shattered the invisible contract that said you'd keep protecting their mask. That's why they're angry. It's not that you exposed them, it's that you stopped playing along. Understand this: people who depend on deception can't survive honesty. Your clarity is oxygen to you, but poison to them. You didn't betray anyone. You just stopped holding the door open for their manipulation. You walked out of their cage, and the echo of that freedom still rattles in their bones. They'll twist the story, of course. They'll cry disloyalty because admitting the truth means admitting they built their world on lies. But deep down, they know. What you did wasn't rebellion, it was release. You didn't burn bridges, you burned illusions. And what's left now is pure, unfiltered, undeniable, and free. They can keep their stories. You've got your peace. That's the kind of liberation no apology can undo. The cage is gone, and for the first time, they have to face what life looks like without you holding the bars in place. Number 11. When truth chooses your mouth, don't hesitate. That's heaven using your voice as judgment. When truth finds your mouth, don't flinch. That moment isn't random, it's alignment. It's the universe deciding that silence has lasted long enough and that your voice is the clean break between illusion and consequence. You didn't plan it, didn't rehearse it, but when you spoke, something shifted in the air. The weight of it wasn't anger, it was inevitability. The truth didn't need permission, it just needed a vessel strong enough to carry it, and that vessel was you. They thought they were in control of the story. They believed timing belonged to them. But timing belongs to balance, and balance has perfect aim. The moment you opened your mouth, the atmosphere changed. They didn't just hear words, they felt a verdict. That's what shakes them now. Not because you exposed something they didn't already know deep down, but because they realized they couldn't outrun what was coming. Every secret they guarded became suddenly heavy. Every manipulation, every lie, every half-truth started echoing back in their own voice. You didn't speak to destroy, you spoke to reset. Your words carried precision, and precision is the universe's way of saying, enough. That's why they can't sleep. That's why they're restless. They're not haunted by your tone, they're haunted by what your timing revealed, that they were standing at the edge of their own consequences. Understand this: when truth chooses you, hesitation is betrayal. You weren't meant to soften it or twist it to protect anyone's comfort. You were meant to deliver it exactly as it came, sharp, clean, undeniable. That's what chosen ones do. They don't chase justice, they become it. And once the truth moves through your voice, it never returns empty. Number 12. Realize you were never the test taker. You were the divine exam they failed in silence. They thought they were testing your loyalty, your patience, your breaking point. But they never realized the real test was them. Every word you spoke, every silence you held, every boundary you drew was a mirror exposing who they truly were. They believed they were in control, measuring your reactions like judges in a game they invented. But in truth, they were standing in their own evaluation. And every time they chose deceit over honesty, they marked themselves. You weren't part of their experiment. You were the standard their actions could never meet. That's what's haunting them now. They remember the moments you gave them chances to do right. The crossroads where they could have chosen truth, but instead went deeper into lies. They replay those moments and realize it wasn't you they deceived. It was themselves. You never set a trap. You simply existed with clarity. And clarity exposes everything that can't survive the light. Now they're seeing it. Every conversation, every small betrayal, every fake smile feels different in hindsight. They thought they were watching you, but the universe was watching them, recording every motive, every mask, every manipulation. And the moment truth came through your mouth, the scorecard was revealed. Their calm crumbled, not because you attacked, but because they finally saw the reflection they'd been running from. You were never being judged. You were the judgment. Your presence tested their integrity without saying a word, and when they failed, the fallout was inevitable. That's why they can't stop thinking about you. Not out of love or hate, but because your very existence reminds them of the truth they couldn't live up to. You weren't their downfall, you were their result. And now, chosen ones, let this sink in. Everything that fell apart wasn't your loss, it was your confirmation. You were never exposed, you were revealed. Every mask that cracked, every lie that collapsed was proof that your truth was stronger than their illusion. The nightmare they're living is the balance you earned. You didn't destroy anything, you restored order. If this message hit where it needed to, like this video, subscribe to stay aligned with the movement. Drop 99 in the comments to seal your energy in truth. And share this with another chosen one who needs to wake up right now.